Now, let's actually start styling our project and let's look first at layout. So, layout has classes that reflect directly on the CSS properties names, which you may be already familiar with if you used CSS before. So, what that means, let's get on our demo and let's get into our project and let's really start styling our application. So first of all, I did a small change, which I'll push also in our code change. I just changed a bit of my list of movies because we start really building our app. I want to have a variety and in the properties, and so we can use as much as we can in this tutorial Tailwind CSS and play with it. So before I didn't have description, I didn't have ranking. I just add those so we can help out when we want to do grids and layouts and see how we can make sure we have same length of movie section even the descriptions are different. So that is the purpose of changing that list. So let's get into a layout as we were talking before. And let me explain you what it means when I say it's typically reflecting the CSS properties. So for example, if I come here to my header, and usually you know H1 is a block element. Unless I want to have an inline block, usually you go to CSS, use a display and inline block. If I want to use Tailwind, I'll just say class name equal inline block. Easy. That means it will show me as a display inline block. If I save my code and I come here and I debug it, you see here, if you see the highlight on top, it is not taking the full length of that row. It just as the text written is highlighted. And if you come here on the right side, you see it's display inline block. Let's say if I want to do display block, for example, I can do this. Okay, so you can see it's display block now. If I highlight it, the highlight's taking the full row. Let's say I want to, for example, display inline only. That also. And you see it's display inline. Okay, and here's display inline. And that's same as, for example, if you want flex, if you want flex, if you want the grid, all these things you can just directly write the names as you put them in CSS properties. And Tailwind already build it like this much easy, so it's easy for us to remember them and just reuse them. Now, how we can really use this now? Let me remove this part. And if you see our application currently, it is a list of movies. So what I want a section on the left, right, which have top 5 movies, and also this input field for now. May later add more things and filters so we can style them more to using Tailwind. But for now, I want 2 sections. I want one on the left and one on the right. The left one to have the heading and to have the filter, and the right I want to have list of movies. So the first thing will come in our mind is using flex. Right? Because flex can help us to divide elements into columns. So what I will do, I have the aside, I have the list. So the parent one need to have a display flex. So I'll just come here and say flex. If I save it, you can see here, now I have 2 sections, right? I have left side and I have the right side. Now, if you see, this one here is touching this right side because the 2 sections are just touching each other. If I see here, for example, just hard code something, so you can see the background red, and here let's say it have background, which I don't need to image or say. So you can see these 2 are touching each other, so I want a little bit gap between them. So Tailwind have something called gap, which is easy to remember, right? So gap, you have like gap 1, gap 2, and down here you can see also how much that means. So gap 2 is like 8 pixels. So I'll stick to gap 2 for now to do my work. And you can see this little bit difference now here between these. So I think that's for now enough for me. Okay, now let's go to our right section. And I want we only have the title and the year. Let me add a few other sections. And let's call, for example, this one description, and I want to have here the description, and this one, for example, ranking, and here it will be here dot ranking. Okay, so we have some more content in there. Now, of course, we don't want this to be like that. We want to have lists of movies next to each other. So what we can do is come here to the main wrapper of the list. So we have a UL and we have list of LIs. You can have divs or whatever, but that's what I have for this one, but works for everything else. So we can just do class name. So that's the wrapper of my list, okay? So each LI is a movie, okay, with its own details. So the wrapper of each movie, all of them is the UL. So we have something in the layout called grid. So basically, as you know, the same as CSS display grid, and it helps us just to have like a grid of items. Another helpful Tailwind built-in CSS class, which help us to lay out things with the number we want, like how many elements we want in a row or how many elements we want in a column. So we can do grid calls. So currently it's calls 1 by default, but I want, for example, calls 3. Okay, so that's saying have 3 items in one column. Okay, so I will do this and save and see what we'll do. So you can see here that I have 3 here next to each other. If you do 2, it will only have 2. If you do 5, you have 5. Okay, so let's keep it for now to 3. And then you can see that here again things are sticking each other. So as you remember before, we use gap and we will use that one again. So gap can work with flex and also can work with the grid. So what I will go to gap, for example, maybe 1 only. Let's see if that will look fine. Yeah, I think that should be okay because I need a lot of space to display movies. Another thing you will see is the grid is handling some issues that we may face usually when you use CSS. For example, if you see here, this item have more content than this one, okay? But still, the items are aligned next to each other. It's not like one thing up, another one down, and the layout is breaking. So the grid is taking care of very well of that. So a lot of chaos occurs that usually you have to handle using CSS and write a lot of code in CSS. It's already handled by Tailwind CSS. And let's say, for example, if I come here and search the, so you can see the list of the movies already filtered and the same layout will be kept. It will not be like only one left and it will take the whole thing. So the layout will be maintained and to stay the same, which will be not flickering, nothing like that. So also there's another property we should not be using, but I'll show you as well, which is called grid row. So basically you're saying how many rows you want. Do you want only 1 row? Do you want 2 rows, 3 rows, or so on? So that's not a property of grid also that can be really, really helpful. I hope all this makes sense for you guys. So I will again push this code and a branch called part 7 layout. And we will move into next chapter where we'll start again more designing and we'll focus on the units and how the units work in Tailwind CSS.